Hello, everyone, and welcome to Live Penguin TV. My name's Megan. Tonight I'm going to be talking to you about all things penguin as we watch the smallest penguin in the world making their way from the ocean up into their homes up in the dunes here. Tonight I'm joined by Michael.
Good evening, everyone. I'll be answering your questions from YouTube and checking out the Facebook ones as well.
So as Michael said, he'll be scrolling through the YouTube comments and picking up the best ones for me to answer. So send through all your questions on YouTube. Also send through all your questions on Facebook, and we will have some penguin rangers monitoring those questions, and they will be answering those questions within the next 24 hours. So keep sending through all your questions on Facebook and YouTube. We will do our best to get to them, but if we don't answer your question tonight, tune in next night, the night after. We'll be here each night, and if you keep tuning in, you might just get your question answered. Now, you might have noticed that we've gone live a little bit early tonight, and that's because we've already had some penguins start arriving. So let's head over and see if we can spot where they are. We did have two cheeky little penguins cross already up near the main stands. And we did have a group just here at the edge of the water, but they look like they might have gone back. Let's just have a bit of a look and make sure they haven't snuck past us. Oh, there they are. I almost didn't see them in the rocks there. There's our first group of penguins already. They're very, very early tonight because, as you can see, it's a bit dark and stormy. So we're all quite lucky that we can view the penguins from inside. You guys are at home, nice and snug and warm. Everyone out here on the stands tonight is a little bit wet and miserable. And the penguins have decided that it's dark enough that they're happy to come in nice and early. And that's a nice, good group for our first group of little penguins. And there they go swimming through the swimming pool. Now, these penguins, as I said, they are little penguins, and that is the name of their species, and they are the smallest of all 18 species of penguin. And we are lucky enough here on Phillip Island, where we are in Victoria, Australia, to have the largest colony of these little penguins. So we do have about 32,000 little penguins that live here on the Sutherland Peninsula. And here you go, some of them coming in, swimming through the pool. They're not stopping for anyone. I might head over to the highway camera. We can get a bit of a better look at these guys zooming around the corner. And these little penguins, they do only grow to be about 33 centimetres or 1 foot tall, and they weigh only about 1 kilo. So they are by far the smallest penguins, and they're the only type of penguin we get here in Australia. They are found all along the southern coast of Australia and also in New Zealand. And we are lucky to have so many of them here that we do see penguins crossing the beach every single night here on Phillip Island. And lots of them heading past on the highway there. Let's head back over to the main beach. And we've had some penguins that aren't quite in as much of a hurry. They're having a little bit of a rest on the rocks, having a bit of a preen of their feathers. Now these guys are the smallest penguin, and they are coming, let's zoom out, see if there's any more coming in. They are coming out of the water here from Bass Strait. And if we keep heading out that way, we do go through the Southern Ocean. If you keep going south, where it seems like our weather's coming from tonight, you will go to Antarctica, and that's where those big species of penguin live. Those big penguins like emperor penguins, who can be much, much, much bigger than our little penguins. And they live there because it is really, really cold. They have to be really big to stay warm. And because it does get a lot warmer here, trust me, it does. It's not tonight, but that's why we have smaller penguins. They're so small because they need to be able to stay cool on our hot Australian days. And here comes another group just coming out of the water. And they do have quite a bit of beach to cross tonight. So they're being a little bit cautious. You can see these guys are having a bit of a look around, making sure the coast is clear before they cross the beach, because this is the most scary part of our little penguins' day, because they are quite vulnerable to aerial predators once they come out of the water. They're very safe when they're in the water, but as soon as they pop out, you'll see they're really conspicuous, and they are easy to see for those birds of prey. So they're concerned about things like sea eagles, Pacific gulls, swamp harriers that might try and make a little penguin into a snack. So this is why these guys come in these groups, these rafts or wattles once they're on land, as we like to call them, for safety in numbers. These guys are quite brave because they only have a little waddle that they're crossing in. And that might be why they're a little bit more cautious. And they are also waiting until it gets dark. Oh, and there's a big group. We'll zoom out, see if we can see all of these penguins, who hopefully will give these guys a bit more confidence in crossing this beach. And they do wait until it gets dark because as the sun goes down, those birds of prey, they can't see well enough to hunt, so they'll go to roost for the night. And that's when it's safer for these little penguins to cross the beach. And as I said before, tonight it is darker a lot earlier than it has been the previous few nights because it is a bit dark and stormy. So penguins don't have little watches. They don't come on time each night. Sometimes they're a bit late and sometimes they're a bit early. And that all depends on when it gets dark. And there's another group coming in behind these guys as well. It is penguins galore on the beach here at the moment. Now, we do count these penguins each and every night here at the Penguin Parade. So we do have a ranger right now counting all of these penguins as they cross the beach. And that is Ranger Pip tonight. So send Pip all your love and support because she has a very difficult job right now trying to count these penguins, especially because we have this big wall of seaweed that these penguins are having to cross, as well as all of these rocks. Now, although the rocks may look a little bit difficult for these little penguins to climb over, they actually like the rocks and seaweed because it gives them a bit of added camouflage. So they do feel a little bit safer in the rocks because if a predator does fly overhead and they aren't quick enough to run back into the ocean, they can lie down and they can pretend to be a rock, which makes it a bit easier for the penguins, but a bit harder for our penguin counter. So you can try and help Pip out. If you want to have a go at counting these penguins, you can see how you go. Tonight is definitely a difficult night to be counting. And if you want to try counting them, you want to wait till they're at about this point where the seaweed is. So when they're about halfway across the beach, that is when we start counting these little guys. Because before that, if they do get a fright, they're likely going to run back in the water where they do feel safest. So she'll be rushing to try and count all of these penguins as they're crossing right now. If you think you've counted them, you can put it in the comments how many you think are in this first group. And if Pip isn't too swamped trying to count all these penguins, she might let us know how many's in this first group.
So we've got a few questions, and one was just how many penguins came in last night?
That's a great question, Michael. Do you want to pipe in with that one? Yeah, do you know how many penguins came in last night?
So last night there was 1,717 penguins that crossed the beach last night. So hopefully we get a lot more than that tonight. It's exciting to see.
1,717 penguins, everyone. So I know a few of you tune in night after night. If you tried to guess how many you thought came in last night, who was closest to 1,700 penguins? It's looking like we have 1,000 odd penguins maybe in these first couple groups. They're just streaming in there. So do try and count them. At the end of tonight, you can try and guess how many came in, and then tomorrow you might be able to find out the answer to that one as well. So Pip definitely has a difficult job. And
just to keep on with that one, Pip just mentioned that she had about 214 penguins come up just then.
Wow. So if you didn't catch that, Michael said there was about 214 penguins that has just come in this first group. And it looks like more and more are following them in. That is a stream of penguins. And it is a bit easy to see them with their little white tummies against those rocks. But Pip is over to our left. So she has a little bit more difficult of an angle trying to count them. So you might have better luck if you counted more than 214 penguins. Maybe she missed one or two. But our penguin counters are usually pretty accurate. And we've been counting these penguins since about 1968. Just a ranger with a pair of binoculars counting them as they cross the beach. So we haven't changed that method because we want to be able to compare the numbers over all of those years. Whether we could be slightly more accurate or not, it doesn't matter because we have that same amount of error. And we found we're only maybe about 10% error at the most. So that's not too bad considering we're counting all of these penguins by hand. And you'll notice that now there's lots and lots and lots coming in. We've got a bit of a penguin traffic jam because once they've crossed the beach, I'll go to the highway camera because there's a lot on their way along there. Ooh, no traffic jams here. So we do call this pathway here the Penguin Highway because it is the most popular penguin pathway at the entire penguin parade. And they are in a hurry, these penguins along the highway. They're going full speed. They have places to be, things to do. And that's probably because we are in our little penguin breeding season here on Phillip Island. So a lot of these penguins, they probably have eggs to sit on, chicks to feed, and a lot of them are looking a bit chunky. And that's a good sign. That means they probably have lots and lots of food that they're bringing home for their chicks. And if you tuned in on Monday, you might have heard Dr. Andre refer to these penguins as walking fridges because they can bring lots of food home for their chicks and they store that food without actually digesting it. So these penguins aren't eating, they're eating a lot, but they're not digesting much of it. They're bringing it all back to feed to their babies. So if they're looking chunky, it's all selfless, it's all for their little babies. And if you don't know how a penguin feeds its chick, it's a little bit gross. They regurgitate it. So they vomit that food straight into their babies' mouths. It might sound gross to us, but that is a penguin delicacy. And they'll be eating things like sardines, anchovies, so all those little small fish, even a bit of baby barracuda and jellyfish. So that's what they're full to the brim with, our little penguins. And there's still a lot of them resting here on the rocks where they feel nice and safe. And we have had lots and lots coming in here on Phillip Island. And Phillip Island also has another name. So we are here on Millau. And Millau is the traditional name of Phillip Island. And that's what it was called by the Boonwurrung. So the Boonwurrung were the first people here on Phillip Island watching these little penguins crossing the beach. Let's see if there's a few more coming in. And they would have seen these penguins streaming in when they used to come here in spring and summer to feed on things like shellfish and short-tailed shearwater birds. And they live very sustainably on this land here on Millau and took only what they needed. So I would like to acknowledge the traditional custodians, the Boonwurrung of the land we are on here on Millau, and acknowledge their elders past, present and emerging. And as well as being Boonwurrung land, here at the Penguin Parade, this land is managed by Phillip Island Nature Park. So that's who we are. And we not only look after the penguins, we manage about 20% of Phillip Island. So we look after the entire Summerland Peninsula where our 32,000 penguins live. We also manage the Koala Conservation Reserve where we are looking after some koalas that were affected by the recent bushfires here in Victoria. And we also have Churchill Island Heritage Farm, the Nobby Centre, a colony of about 20,000 Australian fur seals, and many, many parks and reserves that we do help look after. So if you do want to help us with all the conservation, education and research work that we do here at Phillip Island Nature Parks, you can do that by adopting a penguin. You can become a penguin pal, or you can just donate to the Penguin Foundation. And that money goes back into our conservation and research work to help protect our wild places and our wildlife here on Phillip Island. And you might even be able to get a cute little stuffed penguin like this one to have at home with you, because it is a symbolic adoption. I know our little penguins here, they are very, very cute, but trust me, the last thing you want is to have one of these little guys in your house. They are stinky, they are noisy, and they do bite, because these are wild animals. So all these penguins are wild. They would be coming in here whether we were here or not. We just get the pleasure of getting to watch them each night. And there they are swimming through the pool. And seeing the penguins is one thing, but we do hope that soon you can all come and visit us and experience everything that comes with the Penguin Parade. We have been lucky enough to welcome back regional Victorians, and we are hoping that soon as restrictions ease, we can welcome back the rest of Victoria, hopefully the rest of Australia, and then the rest of the world. Because as well as seeing the penguins, when you are out in a penguin colony, It is noisy, it is stinky. You can imagine the smell of penguin poo, which is pretty fishy, and all those calls. So you can hear the huck, 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 huck of the penguins when they're out in the water coming in. And when they're on land, they have many, many calls. They have about 12 different kinds of calls that they make. So you might hear some more hucking, you might hear the it is a very noisy, a very smelly place in a penguin colony. We might go over to the highway camera again. There's some penguins coming past. There they go, and we've even got a bit of a stream happening here. So if you're here, you might hear the little pitter-patter of their feet as they walk along the highway. You can see all their little footprints here in the sand as well, from all the penguins that have already come past. And it's a very, very short time. We'll go back over and see if there's some more coming in.
So do you want to just answer a couple of questions? We've got
Sure, Michael.
Keen to get their questions answered. So Ali wrote in and she asked, how do the penguins choose their homes?
How do they choose their homes? That's a fantastic question, Ali. So where a penguin decides to live all depends on where they were born. So penguins don't just come in when they want to start breeding and pick the closest, nicest burrow. They go back to where they were born as chicks. So when the chicks leave home, they're only about 8 to 10 weeks old, and then they will spend pretty much their whole first year of life out at sea. So it's very tough for those young little penguins. They have to go out, learn how to find food. Nobody teaches them how to go out and be a penguin, so they have to figure that out all on their own. They just follow other penguins out to sea for the first time, and when they come back a year later, they take that exact same pathway they took back to the place where they were born. And then when they start breeding, when they're about 2 years old, they will make their nest usually within about 45, 50 meters of where their parents lived. So they have an excellent memory and a great sense of direction to come back to the place where they were born to make their homes once they're adults. So sometimes a young male penguin might even come back and he might end up fighting with his dad for burrow space because penguins are very territorial. So the male penguins are the ones that will dig a burrow, they will claim a wooden box, and they will try and keep that burrow for as long as they are successful in that burrow. So sometimes we might get a burrow with a couple of chicks in it. Mum and dad might leave those chicks home alone. They're just hanging out there, and then this adult penguin comes to join them. I think that's a little bit strange. This adult isn't their parent. What's it doing in this burrow? And a lot of our penguins are microchipped, so we can actually scan that penguin, go back, check its history, and see that that penguin was born a year ago in the burrow next door. And that penguin's come back and said, hey, I was born here. This is my home. What are you doing in my home? I've actually seen that a few times. Oh, here they go, heading up the hill. I'll zoom out a little bit. We've actually seen that in this burrow, these burrows that you can see right here. Because these little wooden boxes just next to this penguin pathway are actually some of our research burrows. So we do monitor these penguins in here. We see what they get up to. And we have seen those chicks coming back to this area, looking for the home where they were born. So it's not always the easiest journey. Some of them might have to walk up to 2 kilometers to get home. So these penguins going along the Penguin Highway, they might have a long journey ahead of them. So they will stop, they'll have lots of little rests along the way. And if they do get tired, they'll just stop and have a little nap. So penguins aren't coming in tonight to sleep. They will only have little 4-minute sleeps. Whenever they get tired, whether it be on land or out in the water, floating on the surface, these little guys only need to sleep for about 4 minutes at a time, which is a pretty handy trick. I wish that I could do that. Now, Michael, do we have any other questions?
Yep, we've got a couple more. I don't know if you're going to be able to answer this one. This is a pretty tough one.
A tricky question. Okay, throw it at me, Michael. I'll do my best.
So the question is, do penguins see the same colours as we do? Or, maybe just how good is the penguin's eyesight?
Well, that's a very good question. So penguins' eyesight is a little bit different to ours because penguins spend most of their time in the ocean. So their eyes are very well adapted to finding food in the ocean. And in the ocean, red light gets filtered out. So penguins see mostly in the blue spectrum of light. So that's why here at the Penguin Parade, all of our lights actually have a red filter on them. So if you think the penguins' eyes are looking, their tummies are looking a little bit orange, it's because those lights shining off them have that filter, so that the penguins can't see those red or orange lights as well as they can bright blue or white lights. And they also, their eyes are very interesting. They do have very good eyesight. They don't have night vision, so they do like to come in when there is still a little bit of light to help them find where they're going. And they also have 3 eyelids. So they have 2 normal eyelids like we have, and they have a 3rd clear eyelid, which acts kind of like goggles. And that helps the penguins see when they're in the water. So the water doesn't get in their eyes, they can close their 3rd eyelid and they can focus their eyes in the water to find all of those little fish that they're searching for. So that's a fantastic question. I don't think we've had that one before. Now, Michael, I think we might have only a couple minutes left.
Yeah. About 5 minutes left.
Yeah. 5 minutes left. Gosh, that went fast. Our penguins like to surprise us nice and early. So we might zoom out. We'll see if there's any more coming in. There's more penguins. Pippa's got her work cut out for her tonight. Look at them all streaming in. Oh, sorry, let me try and zoom in on these little guys here. And we've got another penguin roadblock on these rocks. So these rocks have a few names. I know Sky likes to call them the Ceylon, and they also get called the Resin rocks. And these penguins here, they are preening their feathers. So penguins have very special waterproof feathers that help them survive out in the ocean, where they spend about 80% of their time. So some penguins can be out there for days, weeks, a month, and water doesn't actually touch their skin because of these very special waterproof feathers. So when they come on land, they need to preen. They need to make sure all those feathers are interlocked. They lock together kind of like a zip so that water can't get through. So they're just making sure all those little feathers are locked together. You might also see some penguins putting their beak down under their tail where they have a little oil gland, and they'll be putting that oil through their feathers, making them nice and sleek and smooth and helping that waterproofing. And some penguins might even help preen each other. Let's see if we can spot any penguins preening each other. A little bit of, if you scratch my back, I'll scratch yours. Because if you're a penguin, it's a little bit hard to preen your own head or your own back. So while you're in a group like this, you might try and get a friend to help you preen, because you want to make sure you're looking good before you head home and see your partner. Because most of these penguins will have their partners at home, sitting on eggs, waiting with the young ones, and they'll be seeing them very, very soon. Excuse me. Now, Michael, do we have one more question before we finish up?
Yeah, I'll give you another question. So Kylie asked, why is there a different number of penguins that come in each night?
That's a great question. Why is there a different number of penguins coming in each night? So that depends on what the penguins are doing. So whether the penguins have chicks or eggs, what stage they're at. So when they do have eggs, they're coming in maybe every 3 to 5 days. When they have young chicks, they're coming in every day and going out again. And when they have older chicks, they might be coming in every couple of days again. So we do get more penguins coming in when they're in those different stages of breeding. So when they are staying at home with their chicks, that's when we get more and more penguins coming in, because they are coming in more frequently. Whereas when we're not in the breeding season at all, so when we're in winter and food is further away, the penguins aren't breeding, they have to spend a lot longer out at sea finding food. So when they are spending a month out at sea, we don't have as many penguins crossing the beach. So it's also to do with how often the penguins need to come in and what stage of breeding they're at. So that's a really great question. Thank you for that one. All right, guys, so it looks like we are coming to the end of our penguin live stream, still with many, many penguins crossing the beach. So I would like to thank all of you so much for joining us tonight. Remember, if you do want to help the work that we do here at Phillip Island Nature Parks, you can donate to the Penguin Foundation. You can adopt a penguin or become a penguin pal. And you can tune in again tomorrow night and the night after. I know many of you waddle watchers, as you like to call yourselves, do like to tune in night after night. I will be here again tomorrow night, so I'll probably see some of you then. And any new viewers, thank you for tuning in. We hope to see you here again, and we hope to welcome you guys back to the Penguin Parade when we are able to welcome the rest of Victoria and the rest of Australia and eventually the rest of the world back here to the Penguin Parade. So thank you so much for tuning in. We'll see you all again next time.
Good night.
See ya.